Hi, I'm Bill Labaris. I'm the editorial director of the Mobile Enterprise 360 community. And I'm joined here now by Amit Pandey, who is Group Vice President of Mobile Platforms at Citrix. And we're going to be talking about some of the strategies for building a cohesive and proper MDM strategy in your organization. Amit, thank you very much for joining me here today.
Great to be here, Bill.
So when you consider and to some extent weigh the different intricacies of MDM, what are some of the more common errors or mistakes that you see organizations perhaps making as they're in the early stages of formulating their MDM strategies?
Probably the most common mistake we see, and it's really driven by the pace of change in the mobile space, is that people have rushed into MDM strategies or mobile device management strategies. And what I mean by that is that, the biggest driver of MDM tends to be giving employees access to email. And, typically what may happen is someone on the senior management team may walk in with a device that IT hasn't supported in the past, a mobile device such as an iPad or a tablet, and they demand access, and suddenly, before you know it, IT is rushing around being forced to look around for an MDM solution, and they jump in both feet first, and voila, there are quite a few vendors out there, and you can, that do the basic job of MDM, and you pick one and bring them in. What we see happening, and we've gone into many large customers where we've had to replace their existing MDM solutions, is that shortly after that, the business units, the line of businesses within a company become involved, and they start to ask for applications for their end users. So, for example, the sales leadership may get involved and say, we'd like all of our sales teams to have access to Salesforce or the internal SAP app on their mobile device. And IT then starts looking at the existing solution and saying, this isn't going to cut it. We need to now think about how we give access to the apps. And before you know it, other groups are jumping in, like marketing or, finance. And there's a myriad of data center apps. There's a myriad of legacy apps, Microsoft apps that, you'd have to deliver access to on mobile devices. And, at that point, there's a lot of rework that has to be done. Often there are companies who will either rip out the MDM solutions they chose or will then go on and add several other point solutions to deliver the enablement that's being asked for. And that tends to be probably the most common mistake, which is moving in too quickly without thinking about all the other considerations around mobility. And, most companies are enabling a lot of apps and data on mobile. So it's good to sort of sit back and say, in 18 months, in 12 months, 18 months, and 24 months, which departments am I going to have to support for which applications, which types of data, who will I have to enable? And then when you go into the strategy and vendor selection at that point, you're going to have a much more comprehensive set of asks.
So everyone's a mobile user today, and in every department there's people that manages growingly large numbers of mobile users, a lot of cooks in the mobile kitchen, so to speak. And ultimately, IT is trying to walk that fine line between, giving secure access to the data that they need and probably oftentimes at odds with what the users want. How challenging is it today to walk that fine line for IT?
It is very challenging, especially if you're doing it right. Then you will see the challenge. If you're being a bit draconian about it, you may not see the challenge. And there's certainly, we have customers who in the past were very, very strict about it, and they would simply say, you cannot use solutions like Box or Evernote. You just simply can't, and they would find ways to disable it.
Right.
The problem is that you can do that in your corporate network, but when the employee's at home, they can still put data into the cloud, and it's very hard to police and control. So the right way, we believe, and we know based on observation of quite a few customers, we believe the right way to do this is to offer viable alternatives for the employees. And so if you say, well, we don't want you using a specific cloud service for storage because we don't have all the security needs, then I think it's up to IT and the departments to provide a viable solution. Because if you don't, the employees will find a way to get around the blocks. And so, I'll give you an internal example at Citrix. In order to ensure security, we use one of our own products called ShareFile. And, instead of, now IT has made it very simple for me to go from my mobile device and store data on the ShareFile solution. So, I don't need to try to work around it and find, sneaky ways to put data on the cloud because now I have a viable solution. And I think, in general, when we see sort of better implementations of mobility, we see that, there's a IT-sanctioned, very useful and viable alternatives for data sharing, for email, for, notes, and other forms of collaboration. And then the employees tend to follow that because when it's IT-sanctioned, it tends to be easier and more integrated. So there is a fine line, but, I think that the balance is critical. You can't go to either side too much. If you're too draconian about it, people find a way to get around it, and then you're no better off than if you hadn't done anything at all when they'd be putting everything out on the cloud.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a recent article in Computer World, a very recent article, and it said, well, BYOD is still a bear, and of course associated MDM strategies would be as well. Are there any particular innovations on the horizon from companies such as Citrix that are going to address the difficulty in doing this?
Yes, the real innovation in MDM is really extending it into broader mobility platforms. So our belief at Citrix is that MDM will cease to exist as a standalone solution. And it goes back to your question around, what are some of the mistakes or what are the strategies that work? And, MDM, we all rushed out to market a few years ago to solve the customer problem around device management. The more mature players in this space are recognizing that the customer need goes way beyond device management itself. And it's really about enabling employees to be able to work from anywhere and, on any device. And that's the real innovation that's coming out from companies like Citrix. It's enabling end users. It's tying in a level of security and accountability to a whole host of enabling apps, like productivity apps, like data sharing apps, collaboration apps, and generally the productivity apps that people have used in the past. So, sure, there are a lot of native apps, and certainly we can provide a degree of protection around native apps, but there's also a lot of legacy apps. You and I probably both use a ton of apps on our laptops, and we'd like to use those apps on our mobile phones. So, the innovation is being able to provide access to corporate data that we've been using with our laptops to our mobile devices, from our desktops to our mobile devices. And so it's really providing a mobility platform. And, I believe that's really exciting because, it goes way beyond MDM and it brings value to the line of business. MDM was more of a security play. And I think what we're going to see moving forward is about enablement. It's about, bringing ROI to the business, because once you enable your workforce to have access to all the corporate data and the corporate applications on their mobile devices, you truly enhance productivity. And at that point, the CIOs get very, very engaged and excited because it's no longer seen as an insurance policy. It's seen as a way to grow the top and bottom line.
Absolutely, yes. Well, great points. Amit Pandey, Group Vice President of Mobile Platforms at Citrix, thanks very much for that information. Thank you for joining me today.
Great. My pleasure. Thank you, Bill.
And I'm Bill Averis from IDG. Thank you for joining me today as well.